The following program is a public access production. Comcast is required to provide time on this channel and make it available pursuant to franchise agreements with the communities we serve. Comcast is not affiliated with the following program or the producers of public access programming and is not responsible for the content. The following program does not reflect the opinions of Comcast or its affiliates.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Yes, this is me, Ms. Rhonda B., coming to you from Voices of Mass Discussion. I want to thank you for joining us once again this evening. I want to quickly say that my media assistant, Ms. Maureen Forte, she was not able to join us today because she had found herself in the hospital. So we wish you well, Ms. Maureen. But today what we do have is another partner in crime, Ms. Mary T. from the Mary T. Perspective. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for being here, everyone, and welcome.
Okay, and I'm so excited because our special guest today is Ms. Debbie Halvorson. And I want to thank you, Ms. Debbie, for joining us.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Okay, no problem. So Debbie, as many of you may already know, she is running, because you know she always do the big stuff. So she has the nerve to be running not only for the congressional seat, but against our dear friend, Mr. Jesse Jackson Jr. So we contacted her, and of course she's gracious enough. And that's one thing I want to thank you and remind you guys. Debbie, every office she's in, she's always been pleasant and allowed us, the small media, to interview her, pick her brain, and see what her platform is. And this time was no exception. So we thank you for that, Debbie.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with both of you, Rhonda and Mary. And I just also want to say, gosh, Maureen, I hope you get better. I didn't know she was in the hospital.
Right. Yeah, she's okay. She's called herself cooking. That's not what she do, so she gave herself food poison.
Oh, no.
So, at least that's what they said.
Okay.
But so from now on, we have to take her out to dinner. She can't cook anymore. So, but Maureen, we wish you well. So, but anyways, you know what? A couple of things. We're going to let Debbie reintroduce herself to the public, to us in the community, because most of us know her and know of her. But a lot of people are surprised as to the venture that she's undertaking. And I'm sure she probably surprised herself a little bit, too. But one thing I want to remind Debbie, years ago when, I was sort of new at this, and we had contacted her, interviewed her at her office. I thanked her for allowing us, the small media, to come in. And she said one thing she had learned early on in her career is that you never treat little people like they're nobody, because you never know when the nobody's going to become the somebodies. I have repeated that to so many politicians because that was just so profound to me at the time. And it's true, too, though. But, what happened, I was looking, doing the research for this, one of your videos, and you repeated that here again recently about somebody told you that about everybody was so surprised when you won your state seat. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting that was something that you believed in, and then you still carry it forward. So now I'll let you tell your own story.
Well, thanks, Rhonda. and again, and Mary, thank you so much, because, and I do believe that, and I will get to that, but I am Debbie Halvorson, and one thing I believe in, and I will never change, is you are an equal. It doesn't matter, and that's what I've proven as I've run, whether it was for local office, because I started out as Crete Township Clerk, then I went on to run for state senator, and I was running against Aldo DeAngelis, somebody who had been there 19 years. Most people said, does she know what she's doing? That poor woman. Does she realize she's going to get squashed? Right. Well, what I would do was go around places and say, it doesn't matter if you're going to vote for me or not, you need to know who I am. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to the fact that everybody puts their pants on the same way, and people need to realize that elected officials are no different. We're here, I've just chosen a different kind of career of helping people. And unfortunately, people who choose this way of life sometimes forget where they come from. And I have never done that. So I went on to beat Aldo DeAngelis. And the reason...
And made history.
And made history as the first woman ever to hold that Senate seat. But I want to remind everybody, his campaign manager said, we knew Debbie Halvorson was going to win because Aldo knew all the bank presidents, but Debbie knew all the tellers. Mm-hmm. You have to remember that sort of thing. Well, and then I went on to serve as the first woman ever to be majority leader and serving with Email Jones. And we did get a lot done. In fact, Barack Obama was elected in 1996 also as state senator. In fact, he walked precincts for me in South Holland.
Oh, okay.
Because his race was over in the primary, and he went to Emil Jones and said, okay, so I want to help. Where can I help? And Emil Jones said, well, we have Debbie Halvorson, who has the race of her life. And he goes, well, I've heard about Debbie Halvorson, I want to go help her. And he said, okay, well, we need you to go help. And he not only wrote me a check, he walked precincts.
Yeah, and you know, in Obama mentioning him, he's another person that as he was coming along, recognized the small end of things, and so we never had a problem, you know, reaching out to him.
Right.
Lord knows we didn't know he was going to be president. We really been nice to
Sure.
him, but we didn't have any difficulty reaching out to him. So I just always remember that, and I repeated it so many times over the years. And then when I heard you saying it in one of your press conferences, I'm like, oh, she must really believe that stuff.
But I do, and because I grew up in a very modest family. You know, we were poor, and my mom always reminded that don't ever forget where you come from. And so, you know, I did. I grew up with two brothers. I was the oldest, and my father refinished furniture. And, you know, he handed my mom a small check and said, here, honey, make ends meet. And sometimes our ends were so far away from each other, they didn't only meet, they didn't even know each other.
Right.
So, you know what, I've never forgot that. So as I've done things with my life, I wanted to help people. I now have a great life. I want to make sure everybody else has a great life.
Okay, so we appreciate it. And now this is the thing. Now we'll get to the political end of it. Now we've done the nice stuff. So because there's two things. First of all, like she said, she made history when she ran for D'Angela's seat, which is really huge back in the day. And many of us, I would say myself included, did not think that was a possible
Right,
winner.
and you're with the majority.
And not because it had anything to do with you, it's just that if you follow politics or if you've been involved in the political arena, you know most of the time, or at least you feel, it's an inside job.
Correct.
And so what we knew at the time is that you were coming from the outside in.
Oh, yeah, I didn't come from a...
really from the outside.
Exactly. I didn't have a political family. This was a grassroots.
Right.
I had so many energized volunteers, didn't have the money, you know, that sort of thing. So you're right, very much outside in, and being a female.
And being a female, yeah.
Right.
Especially, even though a lot of people won't even remember or believe that, when you ran originally, it was not okay for a female to branch out into a man's world.
Right.
Today it's a lot more accepted, you know, even though they still try to keep you down, but it's not. It's not the norm, it's not politically okay.
Right,
But back
right.
then it was like, how dare she? And so then now we're going to fast, you know, you had your seat, nice comfortable seat, you were somebody in the South Suburban area, you know, we all knew you, respected you, when you could have just stayed where you were.
Right, I was the Senate Majority Leader, number 2 in the state Senate. But in 2008, Barack was running for president, and he sort of urged me to run for Congress, and I had a lot to decide. You know, I could stay as the number 2 person in the Senate, or I could go to Congress. And I believed that it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about titles. It was where could I make the biggest difference for the people. And I chose to go to Congress and did win big in a relatively new district. It was different than where I'd served as a state senator. And so...
And against big money.
And against big, because it was always a Republican district. You know, Jerry Weller held that seat forever. And so I won that seat big and served 2 of the most historic years in Congress, I believe, ever, because we passed health care reform, we passed financial reform, the House passed an energy bill that died in the Senate, but I stood there with Barack, whatever he wanted. I believed it was very important that we stood with our president. He needs help. He still needs help. And I think that's why I lost my seat in 2010, because we stood for all the right reasons and for all the right causes. And I wouldn't have done anything different. You know, my mom had breast cancer at 49. And remember I said my dad was self-employed. You know, they couldn't afford health care. My mom had breast cancer at 49. I watched her fight her bills instead of her illness. And you know what? Everybody out there knows someone who's had to do that. And no one should have to go through that. You know, we live in a wonderful country, and that's not how things should be. And I